it's good because it hits a broader audience. I mean, all 50 states in the Bahamas. So
That's outstanding. That's
yeah.
good. Good. How you doing there, man?
All right.
I
Well,
feel like I feel like I'm faking, so I'm gonna go buy myself a microphone and some headphones so that I feel like I'm also podcasting.
no, you're good, man. We're live now.
I
You
know.
could, yeah, you.
I just feel like I feel like I need like the podcast gear.
The part you got to get all the legit gear, huh?
Yeah, like the headphones and
Yeah, I've always had the headphones, so I'm not too particularly worried
you're a
about that.
gearhead though. I see you always have the good gear.
Yeah, I just bought this cheap mic off of Amazon. But anyway, it's all good, man. Uh, I'm ready to dive into some really cool conversation. I'll give those disclaimer. So, we're covered there. These thoughts that we're going to talk about today are just our thoughts alone. By no way, shape, or in no way, shape, or form, excuse me, do they have any credence, color scheme, or relation to what the Grand Lodge is feeling or thinking. These are just
Any Grand Lodge.
any Grand Lodge for that matter, just two brothers having a conversation, giving you brothers an opportunity on the Easter Sunday to just hear Masonry spoke at on a different level. So that being said, before we came on the air, Aaron and I was just talking about what we wanted to talk about today. And it's funny because we were just talking about using the stronger grip. It's kind of the status of masonry, the state of masonry right now,
The
right?
appropriate the
The appropriate
appropriate
grip.
the appropriate theme for this day, right?
Absolutely.
The appropriate
Yeah.
theme for this day. And look, we can get into a little bit about, without getting the hairs on anybody's back up,
hmm
the analogy that is inferred from, the theme of the day, right? Like this whole idea of dying, spending some time in the grave, and then being reborn, into the world and as a more substantial thing, right? Like, and why that's important. We can talk about the fact that, this is not this ideology and this practice, frankly, is not unique to one religion or, groupthink. That it's an old thing that has been done in mystery schools for as long as there have been mystery schools, and almost the point and purpose of most of them, right? How
hmm
do we how do we remove the mystery of the end of this particular phase of existence so that you can now have it, so that you can now be in this actual phase, you know what I mean? Like, how do we give some treatment to that stuff? And then for us, how do we move from the one fate, the upright living materialistic less substantial space to the grave, and how do we get pulled out of it,
mm
right? and and
Okay.
and and that there are ways, and there are right ways and wrong ways for all of it, right? But it's funny, man. I talk to a lot of guys about our craft and what we do, and it's not uncommon that guys will say, well, what is the reason for this organization? Like, what's the reason for this philosophy? And I mean, what we say, to make good men better, to improve ourselves, to subdue our passions. Got it. All of that's true
hmm
also, right? But and I'm going to speak for myself and my own personal understanding of the material and the craft and the history of the thing that we do and that this thing is based on.
Mm,
If I can teach you to die, if I could teach you to literally release, to let go of this material, truly insubstantial version of living.
mm,
And at the same time, and no, for the to the point, to the exact point of removing the fear of it.
yeah.
If you come out the other side of that with this now better understanding of what it is, man, you get to really live your life, don't you? Like if you're not afraid of dying, imagine what you could accomplish.
Yeah, I just think that that's so appropriate to masonry because coming in as a neophyte, right, in that first degree, and you go through that ceremony and you have no idea what's coming, right? And if you think about to your point, the death of it, right? You're metaphorically killing your old self
Mm-hmm.
to become a new self,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in that death, you let go of that fear. Follow your guide and fear no danger.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that and you exhale, and then you're finally placed where you're placed as that cornerstone, I don't know about you, but I can still remember, and it's been almost 20 years. Next year will be 20 years. And
Yeah.
I can still remember what the feeling I felt sitting in that northeast corner. Um, it was crazy. Like it
So,
just until this moment, those thoughts just came all the way came back, right? They just came flushing, like flooding back, and
but say those words again, right? And fear no danger. Follow God, fear,
fear no danger.
because that's the point. You've been
Yeah.
afraid to die your whole life. The things that you
Hmm.
wouldn't do, the things that you felt, held back from. Because what if this? And I don't want to leave or lose this life. Man, you don't
Right.
even know what your life is yet. You really have no idea. Until you're not afraid to lose it, you can't know. Fear no danger. If you could learn that there's nothing to fear from it on the other side, and our life is like this.
Yeah.
It's so fast, it's a blip. And it's continuous. And that's the other thing we're trying to teach, right? Like it's old information. In order to be a Mason, you have to believe that there's another, that there's an again, that there's a continuance
Hmm.
of this process, right? Man, imagine if there are two ways to go over, right? Like one, you get to the end of it and you're bound up with fear and doubt, right? What if that's what you find? What if that you have to traverse all of that, to then get to it, versus somebody who has none of that. And the transition is just really easy. Now you're just in the next. Now you've shed this vehicle
Hmm.
and you can move on to the other spaces, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, you had something specific you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, I was more looking at it. I hear that point and I appreciate that point because that traverseness of it, and then that fear, that inherent fear is a scary thing to think about in and of itself. But I just wanted to talk about that being the state of masonry,
Mhm.
life, death, and obviously, right, today is appropriate and apropos with the resurrection. And in masonry, we go through all of those things.
Mhm.
We literally, right? Maybe metaphorically.
Ego death?
Let me say metaphorically, right?
Please say metaphorically.
Yeah, let me say metaphorically. We go through those
You know what,
things.
man? I don't know. I think you could say, look, I know my own personal experience, ego death. I've seen it in other people, and I hope for it for a lot of folks, right? Like
Mhm.
actual, actual. And this organization, if you engage it, it's going to test and require it.
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you, I always just use myself as a litmus, and just to be transparent. 5 years ago, like my ego was on 10, right? You get put in certain positions and it can overwhelm you if you let it, and you can become egotistical with that getting knocked back down to the first degree, to that level of humility, makes you see things differently. Now things are really slow in my mind,
Yeah.
and I've accepted a responsibility first, and then like a level of humility now, and knowing that this is not promised. So don't take it so serious anymore. But to the point that I was originally going to make, because I'll go off on some tangent and start rambling.
I'll
Uh,
share with you, man. We can catch that way.
nah, it's just we talk about the stages of masonry and how we go through it metaphorically, but we also get to a point where we have to use a certain grip to bring it back.
Mhm.
And we've tried weaker grips. Now we need a stronger grip because masonry's in such a putrid state that the flesh is cleaving from the bone. And so now we're trying to pull masonry back with a, as you said before we came on air, a stronger grip.
Stronger grip. So I'm not going to let you off the hook on this because
Okay.
I didn't see you
Okay.
going there. I didn't realize we were going to go here. So,
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm game.
you know, man, wow, it's a lot. So the state of masonry,
Mm,
the grave, and if we need to revive it, we can start off at that first week attempt,
mm,
try again with something we think is a little more substantial.
right.
Not going to work.
No, it's not. And it's
Gotta find something much more substantial, maybe much, I'm coming to despise the word esoteric only because it's one of my favorite words and it's so misused and misunderstood, right? Like you say esoteric and people think witchcraft, and the word really just means, you know, uncommon or hidden, not easily seen. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no magic in it. And you've heard the whole magic is only science that you don't understand yet anyway.
yeah, people
Right?
start getting into alchemy and some weird shit. So I just
Not what I mean. And
mm,
when I say esoteric in this way, I really do just mean and so appropriate for the day, right? Common sense is such a crazy term. And maybe there was once a period where people were so sensible, so sensical that saying, man, you need to get some common sense was a good thing. Today it's not.
today is not so common.
Today common sense is awful. Common sense is terrible, right?
Mm,
And so if we're using the common sense, the common mode of operation for social interaction, business interaction, administrative behaviors, like all of the things,
mm.
how we interact with each other, that's a really, really weak grip. The more uncommon sense is something that is more respectful, responsible, accountable, upright, stronger. And then also there is science stuff. There is information, knowledge that when attained and applied can be used to great benefit. And we need that now more than we need anything else. That is the strongest grip we can get. And that by itself could help pull this up.
Yeah, but we're fighting a different battle too, though, because if you think about it, and we're gonna kind of just for 5 seconds draw in Scottish Rite Masonry, one of the things that we fight in Masonry, whether that be symbolic lodge or Scottish Rite, is despotism. And as we think about the despotic understanding, right? Because you're just talking about like how we're falling and where we fall into and where we may have gone, right? It's because of that exercise of the absolute power, especially cruel and oppressive way, that despotic behavior. We're fighting forces that we can't even control.
All right, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I told you it was gonna get funky, and we had if we're gonna go down that road. We're gonna go all the way down that road, and then
Let's talk.
we're gonna go to the end. We got flashlights. It's dark.
All right. So let's really go there. So I wrote a book. I wrote 3 books last year. I wrote one book that I released on the practice of, as we talked about this on another show, the practice of manifesting things, right?
Hmm.
And the face of it is very like whatever, how to, it's popular topic, but really it's about how do you attune yourself to your own ability to create in concert with, this existent overarching creative force, the God that we talk about.
Hmm.
The other one, and we will talk about this one of these days on here, is the set of Sumerian texts that almost all of our Western religious ideology is based on. Gilgamesh, Moses, not Moses so much, but Gilgamesh, Noah, all the great old heroes, the flood, all of it,
Yeah, you got to talk about the Hamitic expression too, which.
including Yahweh, like
Mm.
all the aspects, and the 10th planet. They talk about the 10th planet in this, which by the way, NASA just confirmed it does exist. It has this huge elliptical and probably is the cause of the Kuiper belt, this big, dust and asteroid belt that was obviously some planet or series of planets that got destroyed by some larger mass, got pulled apart. But there, the this Sumerian set of texts talks about a the fact that there was life on this planet, and there were these bipedal beings on this planet, but they just weren't as evolved. They weren't that evolved. And this 10th planet was the home to a group of people called the Anunnaki, who came here and bioengineered those bipedal animals into what are now human beings. Long story. If you want it, I'm going to release this book one of these days. And if you don't want to wait for me, there are other books that are out there clearly. But I wrote a third book. And that book, very Scottish Rite based, well, Scottish and York, but and really Blue Lodge as well, but sort of. Our symbolic lodge is based on today because it wasn't always. It used to be the early forms that were based on Noah, right? And Noah's lineage. Now it's based on Solomon's temple,
Hmm.
right? And a good buddy of his in a building,
Hmm.
right? There's another version of that story that is a Scottish Rite story.
Hmm.
In our daily practice story, Solomon is one of the heroes, right?
But ish.
But in the other story, and if you are a person who follows the Christian faith or a Bible person, Solomon was great until he wasn't, right?
Yeah.
Because why?
Or he got old. I
Hmm?
mean,
He did get old, but what happened?
oh, his
He got caught up in black magic. He
he
got
got he got
drunk
caught
with
up.
power.
He got caught up in a lot. The despotic behavior
He
was
became a despot.
yeah.
He became a despot. So he one really got drunk on power and he decided that he needed to save power. And the way he was going to save it is he was going to keep it for himself and he buried it. He was going to bury it. He was going to keep it in a trove. And I can't go too much
Mhm.
into this stuff because this is a part of our craft, but this is also part of the text outside of the craft, right? He wanted to find as many ways as he could to preserve power. One of the things that he did is he went and engaged black musicians to teach him and to bring
Mhm.
him in that the art of that for the sole purpose of holding and building power, right? And it could only be him. He was the only person who could have it. He was the
Mhm.
only person who could wield it. And all things had to go through him. If it didn't go through him, wasn't going to happen. He would behead you. He would do all the things, man. He became an absolute tyrant, right? And
Yeah,
and the
it's
other side
funny.
of the story is our hero in this other version of the story truly is the hero. And there's also the Queen of Sheba part of that story. There's a child that was produced out of this story,
Mhm.
young king named Menelik, and
Mm.
there's a story about the Ark of the Covenant and how Menelik rightfully gets it and moves it back to his home. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here, but the bigger piece of this story relevant to this thing that you're talking about, this very um, fiery, incendiary topic, is you have the most powerful person in this space who becomes a despot. He becomes a tyrant. He decides that he is the source of power, and he forgets the most important part of power. When you are at the in the seat of power, you are the greatest servant. It is
Servant
not,
leadership.
it is
Yep.
not the will and pleasure of the king. It is
Hmm.
the will and pleasure of the people served by the king.
Yeah. That's the theme of so I'm reading Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the first in the first chapter, talk about servitude and leadership.
Yeah,
And then went on to talk about just the different, endorphins and just different toxicities of leadership and that nepotism and that egotistical leaders,
so crazy.
uh, yeah, putting themselves first, uh, and just forgetting about the people that they're leading.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, they want to. It's a personality, it's ego. That's that we talked about ego death and the necessity of ego death.
mm,
This thing gives us it doesn't teach us. It gives you opportunity to have all of these really wonderful tools and to use them. If you don't apply them, if you don't seek them and then apply them, it will not resonate with you and you just won't get them. But like if you stand in ego in this thing, and I
mm,
see it so often and in big ways, man, big dangerous ways and dangerous to the craft. I know people who have said to me yet recently, the past couple of days, man, really interested in joining this, but I've seen some things or I've heard some things, not interested in that. Right. Like I'm a grown man. Why would I join an organization where you have one or two people who are an emperor or a king and they're gonna, lord over? I'm not interested in that. I want to go to a place where I can learn some stuff.
no King's Day, no King's Day.
Right.
That so I, you know, I have a lot of private views on that stuff, but
This
publicly,
is a safe.
yes, publicly, I'll say this. I'll just say that in order to make changes, and I've told you this before, you have to have a seat at the table. And then to get to that place at the table, you have to look at the leaders that came before us and how much that they had to endure with humility and grace. Privately, they were probably a mess, right? Um, but publicly they were just stoic.
Yeah. I mean, look, we have a challenge. And maybe the challenge is always
Hmm.
buildings on fire.
Hmm.
You can sit back and you can say, you know what? Fire is really hot and fire produces smoke. It's funny, fire doesn't even like water. Like if you put water on fire, mostly, unless it's an oil fire, like you could sit up and you could consider it from an academic space, right?
So from an academic space, I have a bachelor's degree in fire science
So
because I know for years I wanted to be a firefighter, right? And so that was the first major degree I really went after. And most people don't, 35 to probably 40% of the people die from smoke inhalation. They don't die from the fire itself.
but what is one of the most important parts of putting out fire?
Well, you got to take away the fire triangle.
Put out the fire.
You got to put
Put it
out
out.
the fire, of
You
course,
got to put
but
it
but
out.
again, if well, we're talking about just the scientific elements of the three sides of that triangle, like you have to eliminate one of those sides. But putting out the fire is the ultimate goal, right? We'll
Yeah,
just
but,
call,
but I'm
call it what it
saying,
is.
and quicker than later, sooner than later, right?
Of
Like
course, of
what
course.
my whole point was is we can both of us can be very academic about putting out a
Hmm.
fire,
Yeah,
right? Try to write a book about it, right?
yeah.
But the most important thing is, especially when the thing is on fire now, it's not in theory, like it's actually on fire. Somebody got to start doing something about it, man. Like I'm hearing about, cats even there's a lot of disgruntled, there's a lot of feeling, thoughts, upset around the current state. And
Well, the current state is funny. And it's funny because I'm still going to stay on the fire analogy. To really attack a fire, you gotta disrupt the oxygen.
mhm,
and so if we're thinking about the state of our fraternity, it's on fire. So we have to disrupt the oxygen. But the question then becomes how, right? Is how do we disrupt the oxygen to put out the fire? Because now we have to now assess why the fire started and then try to rebuild the structure.
Mhm.
And so as we're thinking about all of those things, the fire started, we disrupted the oxygen, the fire's out,
Mhm.
we have a reflash watch to make sure it doesn't flash back.
Mhm.
And then now we've done an analysis of why it started. We found the cause. Now, how do we repair it back to the stronger grip? How do we repair it? We've lifted it up. We
Mhm.
lifted up all the structures inside the building. Now, how do we repair it?
We talk about it. One of the things that is in our process we don't think about a lot. There are some things that are required
Hmm.
for the instruction to be given, right? There is the tool that you use to do the lifting up, and there is some other stuff. There's other information that is given in those moments, and it can only be given in a group,
Yeah.
right? And again, like when we talk about how we disseminate our information, we do it, signs, symbols, etc., right? Like it's indirect, but it doesn't take that much processing power to understand. The idea is that it's community, it's not individual, it's not singular, it's not one ego that moves this thing, right? It is the collective that is required to bring it up and keep it up.
But we lack the ability to produce serotonin.
Interesting. Say more.
We do because we're naturally creatures that herd.
Hmm.
But in that herding process, especially with today's beings, there's this jealousy and ego that comes in, that despotic behavior because somebody gets so much power. But as a group, as a brotherhood, as a fraternity, we lack the ability to produce serotonin. When we help an old lady across the street, it gives you that serotonin release. And then
Hmm.
somebody sees that act, and by them seeing that act, it allows them to release serotonin because then now they are emotionally involved just by seeing the act performed.
Understood.
Now, as we think about the brothers that told you they're grown men that don't want to be a part of this because they don't see those acts of serotonin being released.
Hmm.
And again, that's just kind of one of the points too that Simon Sinek is talking about in Leaders Eat Last,
Hmm.
right? The oxytocin and the serotonin and the
How do,
endorphins.
how do you resonate the the frequency to elevate all of those other folks around you to move them into space chemically is what you're talking about, mentally,
Hmm.
spiritually also, so that they become better and more aligned with even leadership and understanding, right? But
Hmm.
if you don't do that, or if you're incapable of doing that, you're just going to leave a hole.
Yeah, it's got to be done by example, and it can be one of those things. Like we could discuss it, we can,
Yeah.
but it's got to be one of those true examples. Like literally, and it has to be so consistent that it's contagious. But we have to get other people, right? We have to bring other leaders on board. But the real root cause analysis is this despotic behavior. We have to cut that out first.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of there. Like we're kind of going forward, but we got to go back because we have to cut that get to the root cause analysis. We have to
We have
cut that.
we have a precedent.
We do. We
So
do.
check this out. This is also relevant to this moment.
Hmm.
We had a guy who was sitting on the throne,
Hmm.
who was an absolute despot. He was causing problems. He was making
Hmm.
people really, really, really uncomfortable, right? And so, yeah, folks, like, we got to get out of here. There's got to be a better way to deal with this, right?
Hmm.
There's something else. And they started getting on ships and leaving, right? And some of those folks went to another place, and I'm not going to argue the ethics of the fact of their actions and how they found a place that was fully peopled and unpeopled it and decided that they had discovered and found and whatever. But anyway, they went to another place. and they colonized that place. They set up colonies, 13 of them, as I understand it correctly, right?
Mhm.
And if you ask them, as it was at least progressing, the point and purpose of them doing that, they said, we wanted to have freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom of tyranny. We did not want to be under the thumb of that despot, of that tyrant,
Mhm.
right? And over time, it didn't happen right away. We know this, right? Over time, as they tried to, they were British subjects still, right? They considered themselves to be British subjects. They were just at some distance that they could have a little more freedom, right? But it wasn't until they finally got to the place that this dude was just really out of hand. And they were like, you know what? We gotta do something. There was a lot to it. There was a lot. There was a lot. There was stuff that had to do with our, genetic lineage, and there was a lot going on. But at the end of the day, they said, look, we need to devise a system of leadership. We call it government or governance, right? That allows for us to function effectively and productively, but also creates a balance of power so that there is no place for a king or a despot or a tyrant. So we're going to set up a place where we have a guy surrounded by other people, right? We're going to create a cabinet for this guy. We're going to create all of this brain trust. So we're not expecting this dude to be a king. We're not expecting him to be some kind of, you know, Zen leader, none of it, right? We're expecting him to be able to listen to other folks around him and execute a vision that is a shared collective vision.
Mhm.
We're also going to create another branch, right? That they're going to hold some of this power and they're going to make decisions that can override this guy if need be, right? And then we're going to set up this other group because we're going to set up a series of what we call laws that hopefully we will live living and evolving laws. But we're going to set this group of people up over here because we're not going to give the power to the guy or this other group to determine what is meant by the laws as time goes on, right? By these rules. And also to alter them if need be, right? As time goes on. And we're going to create these branches of power.
Mhm.
And through these branches, we're going to create balance, a balance of power, right? So they can all keep everybody in check. The system right now is broken.
It's imbalanced.
It's broke. It was broken because you now have a
Yeah.
guy who has flexed influence and been allowed to it. Like everybody saw it coming. No one checked it, and they could have. It was checkable, right? But now the ball is steaming along, and look at where we are. And I'm not talking obviously. Well, I don't know if it's obvious. I'm not talking about masonry, yeah, right?
Of course.
I'm talking about the larger thing. But to masonry, there was a bunch of dudes that were involved in the crafting of that system who were Masons. It is not a mistake that there are
Mhm.
so many Masonic or if you are in the craft, you'll recognize things that are from the craft in those systems, right? There's not a mistake that there was architecture created, built, set up in a certain way. And it was borrowed from other places that also had these same Masonic ideas, these same men that were Masonic, that were architects of those other systems. The governance of our craft, in essence,
Mhm.
is set up with a very similar set of governing bodies,
Yeah.
with the point, I believe, and absolute purpose, the ability, if used correctly, to create balance of power that would remove any potential, any possibility for despotism or tyranny. They are not currently
Uh,
functioning.
No, they're not. But we've talked about it before when we, some months back we talked about the Constitution and we really dug into the Constitution. If the craft knew that they were those part of those legislative arms or branches and knew the real power that they possess in session
Oh,
to you see how like they could just disrupt the apple cart if they wanted to.
bro, you know what? You and I are really friends.
No, I'm
I
just
could
saying.
I could tell that we're really friends because we function so much in the same like mental wavelength all the time. I swear to you, I was gonna bring it up.
I'm just saying, think about it. You brought it up. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, and I'm just, understanding like when we do these things, but to letting brothers know that you have to go back and you have to read the Constitution to understand where you fall in the grand scheme of things, and you have a place in the grand scheme of things, right? Pun intended. If we're talking about said grand laws or any grand laws,
Any
so
grandfathers.
pun is definitely intended here. But brothers need to understand that's why we did that piece, that little section on just the Constitution. So they knew, okay, I need to read the Constitution because if I'm a sitting master or a warden, or, I'm say sitting master or warden, like the power I really have and the power we really have
Mm-hmm.
to go to and, oh, this is not right,
Mm-hmm.
let's change it.
Did you have civics class when you were, what were you in elementary school? Was civics elementary or middle school?
Middle school or high school.
So did you have one?
I did, yeah. It's been some time ago, but yeah, I did.
So I know a lot of the brothers in this craft out here are military guys.
Hmm. A
Um,
lot.
and I actually, it's funny. I'm not a military guy. I did
But
not.
you went to military school.
I was in military school from the time I was 6 years old until high school.
Hmm.
And I was actually gonna go to New Mexico. Um, you know, but I finished all my ninth grade, all my college, my high school credits in the ninth grade in military school. My civics course happened in military school. Now, as you can imagine, so this was a Marines and a pretty hardcore Marines military academy.
Mm.
Um, but I, people have these misunderstandings of why military school exists and what kind of kids go to military school. Military school, at least the one I went to, was designed to create a certain kind of person, a really like wild, disruptive. It wasn't the follow dude, right? It was a lead dude, and a lot of them. And these kids, man, I look back now and just think about us as kids and how we were. We were strange when we came out. Like when I got out of military school and tried to go back, integrate back into civilian life,
It was
it's
weird. It
real
was
hard.
weird.
It
It
was
was
real
weird.
hard. But my civics education was about engagement. It was look at these scenarios. Here are all these scenarios, and here are all these scenarios where the populace needed to, could have, or should have engaged. But it was that, and the whole purpose of the education was you are not powerless. You're only powerless if you don't engage the process. One, you need to know what's going on. You need to be intelligent about it. You need to be informed about it.
Mm.
But even then, if you're reading the paper, reading whatever you're reading, or you've gone through all the histories and you see what's happening, but you don't do anything, you're it's certainly a part of the problem, but you're not fixing the problem. And
No.
what you must do is engage. Our craft, and I can only speak for our jurisdiction at this point, allows for civic engagement. If there's something you don't like, if there's stuff, if you like everything, but you feel like there needs to be more stuff, right? You
Mm.
have the individual ability to suggest change. And I think people would be surprised to understand that if you said it, like if you walked into a crowded room of guys in your organization and you said, "Hey, I think we should have cheese sandwiches on Wednesday," that you're probably not the only person to feel that way. And you could get some reverberation and if it was like, listen, we're gonna put this in front of everybody and everybody gets to vote for cheese sandwiches,
Hmm.
you're gonna probably get some votes. Now, you might not. You might just start the percolation of thought, or it might just get washed away, but you must try. You must absolutely try. And our organization provides the opportunity to write resolutions for ideas, engage other people. It requires you to engage a few other people in it, right?
Hmm.
Hope and write it well, but put it out there. And the Constitution provides that it cannot be stopped. It is not in the power of any individual to stop that from happening. Has to go to the floor.
That's true. And
Has to
again,
go to the floor.
that's that power base that I was talking about. Brothers need to know that they have, because if you don't, if you don't like something, you have to change it via the resolution process of, one of those measures, primarily the resolution, or try to write something to amend the Constitution,
Mhm,
right? And you go to the Constitution Bylaws Committee and try to amend the Constitution,
mhm.
most likely via resolution. But again, to your point, they have to know what it means to do that and
They have
why
to know
that's
that they can
important.
do it. They have
That
to
they
know they
can do
can
it,
do it.
but
Then
why
they
it's
have to know that
important.
they should do it, and they
Yeah.
should understand why it's important, right? The other
Mm-hmm.
side of that is too, though, you also give the opposition, the person or people who don't want whatever that thing is, should have the opportunity to stand up and say why. They shouldn't be able to say you can't do it because I don't want you to. They
Yeah.
should have to say, listen, I understand that there's this thing that you guys want, but here's this other version of this other side of this, or this entirely different thing,
Mm-hmm.
and why this is better, I think, and then vote on
Right.
it, and then vote on it. And if whatever that resolution is that changes supersedes the opinion of the individual or group, our organization and our constitution provides for so what? You don't have to like it, but if we all voted on it or a majority voted for it, this is what it is. And it
Two-thirds.
goes in and it should then absolutely go in. And one of the challenges is if you don't have proper balance of power, if you don't have proper bodies set up,
Mm-hmm.
and you do this, then you won't have the facility to enact some of these things that should be done, right? But brothers need to know that they have the power to do it. Brothers need to know that they have the power to do it. You do not have to suffer tyranny. You just don't. You don't.
You, you don't, and it makes me be fight against that and despotic behavior all the time. But we don't even, sadly enough, we don't even know we're fighting a battle. Like, and I say that, and it may sound kind of crazy, but I don't, like, I'm talking to brothers, and I don't even think that they know we're at war with each other.
That's wild.
Like,
We shouldn't be. But yeah, you're right. You're right. That's why.
we shouldn't be, theoretically, right? We shouldn't be. Realistically, we shouldn't be. But when you're talking to brothers, they do this, and they don't realize that they're at war with the people that they call their brothers.
I allow for humanity. I had a conversation last night
Hmm.
with this guy. He's a really interesting dude. And I'm going to preface this in case he ever watches this with I like him as a person. He is a Russian guy who clearly is genetically Arabic,
Hmm.
right? And he is also Jewish. And I've seen him on more than one occasion claim white. He doesn't say Caucasian. He's I'm white. I'm a white guy, and I get white privilege, and I blah blah blah. And he's a part of a friend group of mine, another guy who is there's so much irony in this. My other buddy, he doesn't have any hair now, but he was a redhead kid, with freckles all over. And
Hmm.
he has a ton of melanin just in patches, right? But he's the whitest kid in the group for sure. We're all grown men. But his great grandfather or his great grandmother was North African, right? So there's irony all around it. But I say to this other guy all the time, I said, man, listen, first of all, you ain't white, right? Um, and you think you have white privilege until you get into a scenario where they don't see you as white, they see you as an Arab. You're in more trouble than me or anybody else in the room right now. But the point of me telling the story is one of his favorite things to do is to tell people that he's a racist, right? And he will
Hmm.
also say things like he doesn't believe that misogyny exists. He last night said not only did he not believe he's I'm a racist, there is no misogyny, and there is no such thing as a pay gap between men and women. That's just not real. And if there were women sitting at the table at the conversation, and you can imagine they were getting really incensed. And I said, listen, and he's an employer. Like he's a guy, he owns property all over the country. He owns businesses all over the country. He employs a lot of folks. And I said, let me ask you something. Why do you think that there is no, forget about all the other stuff, because you're clearly not a racist. It's you and I are friends, right? And we dug into that later. One of these days we should have that conversation here because it's a really interesting topic. But I said, why do you think this? And what he said was, because I employ women and I don't pay them less. And one of the women said, you are so incredibly willfully ignorant and desirous of holding your point. Like that is the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. Because you don't do it, it doesn't happen, or because you've never seen it, it's nonsense, man. It's nonsense. And I see it a lot. Like people refuse to recognize something that is obviously true,
Hmm.
so that they just don't have to deal with it. They just don't have to deal with it. And I think that's for him, it's easier to just be like, I've never seen that. It's not true. It's just no, it's trash.
It's like the brothers in Major. I just said it. They put blinders on. They're so consumed with their own shortcomings and misgivings or whatever that they don't even know that they're at war with other brothers around them that they shouldn't be at war with. They have absolutely no reason to be at war with them. Like if you think about the struggles that go on internally within Freemasonry, Prince Hall, more specifically, all over, because all the Prince Hall affiliates have the same issues, just different jurisdictions. And I'm just learning that slowly but surely, right? And I didn't think it, but it's true. But we're at
Imagine,
war with
imagine being on
ourselves.
imagine being on the field and it's live fire coming at you. You're in Vietnam. You're in the jungle. There's live fire, and you're fighting
Two battles.
with right. You're fighting with your guys, and this is a real. I wasn't there. I was like I was. I don't even think I was born. I was born, but I was just. Um, a lot of brothers were actually from what I have heard. Little African American guys were having to fight their white counterparts and
Or
also fighting against these other guys, just trying to stay alive.
we're talking
You
about the
know,
60s. So you already knew what it was, right?
100%.
And so they were fighting two battles. And even
Yeah.
today in Masonry, we're fighting two battles. Like we're fighting our governance, our government system, our leadership in the government, and then we're fighting our leadership and our brothers, air quotation fingers, within the fraternity. So we're fighting two battles every single day, all the time, 365.
Yeah.
And then at what point do we wake up, right? It's almost like Spike Lee and Do the Right Thing. Wake up, right? At what point do we get that Samuel L. Jackson moment and wake up?
I think
And
I
what
think I think part of it is this. You know, I'm not going to I have all these stories, man. I have so many of these stories and I won't tell them all of them. But I met a racist, a true racist. He's famous because there's a photo of him from Little Rock punching a little black girl in the face. And I had the opportunity to talk to him before he died. And I'm going to give the shortest version of the story. There were some people who were really angry with him, you can imagine. And one of the people said, how dare you? How can you live with yourself? And he listened till all the ire was out on the table and he said, listen, I she said, don't you hate yourself? And he said, no. He said, no. He said, I don't hate myself. He said, but the question that you really want to ask is, would I do it again? And am I the same person that I was when it happened? He said, no. He said, the person I was then was the product of like ages and ages, years and years. My father, his father, blah, 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 right? And a cult and a community cultural idea, a set of ideologies, all of those things. He said, but the thing that got me to be the person I am today was access.
Mm.
He said, I had never talked to people, really, I never talked to those other people, and I'd never talked to other people that weren't those other people. He said, but between now and then, then and now, man, I've talked to so many people. I've met so many people. I've had so many conversations, and I have opened up as a human being. I have become a much better version of myself. And the whole thing is, man, if we don't have the conversation, if we sit quietly, if we just rumble on the sidelines or murmur about it, but we don't have real dialogue about it. And I don't just mean dialogue between the people who disagree. I mean dialogue such that other people who have the same feeling or the same sense of things can feel a level of comfort
Hmm.
that they can show up and add their voice to it, right? Because some people just feel like they can't say it. They don't, I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say that because if I say that, I'm going to get in trouble or this is going to happen to me. I'm going to get kicked out of the organization or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, but if they feel that there are people who they can have some faith in,
Right.
who are also saying it, they may add their voice to it. And I think that's the key. You have to talk about it.
You do, and you got to think about every time we step foot in the lodge, we ask the brother, and if possible, to aid him in his reformation.
If possible.
If possible, we ask that question. And I just had a
What's
conversation with a brother about
what's
the
the word? Aid him in his what?
reformation.
What is it?
This his reformation, his
What is
rebirth,
what is
his
reformation?
his his rebirth, his reborn, his renewal of
Right.
his mind, his
To be
thoughts,
reformed,
reformed,
to take this
his
body of clay and to reshape it, man.
rebirthed it, right?
100%. To aid him
But
in that,
again, if possible,
if possible.
it is possible.
It is possible, but to me, when I hear those words, read those words, say those words, what resonates in me is this. If the guy doesn't want to be saved, or if he doesn't think he needs to be saved, he might
Of
think,
course.
absolutely, I'm where I need to be. I'm absolutely right. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
don't have the right or you're not obligated to then go and try to reform him. Leave him alone. But if he is in trouble and he
Mm,
is seeking help, or he's drowning, he's flailing about, he's yelling out the words, help me, then maybe you should try. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like maybe you should try. Maybe you should go in and lend. But what we should not do is take a guy even when he thinks he's right, even when he is standing in ego and arrogance,
Hmm.
and set him on fire. We should not make his scenario worse.
So we should let private animosity exist, and we should let it give way to affection and brotherly love. Is what you're saying, right?
I've heard those words somewhere.
Hmm.
I
I
have
have too.
heard those words a few times.
I have too.
You know,
But we let private animosity exist, and
and
we
we,
and
but we,
we
we don't just let
don't
it, we encourage it.
we encourage it. And we
We fan the
don't give
flames of it.
way. Yeah, and we don't give way to affection and brotherly love.
Look, man, and,
Because the
and,
word,
and it goes
but
deeper than
hold
that,
on,
right? Because we're not supposed to let it triumph outside the lodge either.
no, the words that follow is the useless parade.
If we allow it to triumph in our, come on, man, we understand that there's a lot here. There's a
Uh,
lot of meat in this thing that we do, and
mhm,
in the most surface levels of it. There's a lot of meat here. It's just like you
mhm,
see people go into their meetings and they're hearing these words and they must be thinking about the bill they got to pay, the fight they had with the wife or the girlfriend or the whatever, because they clearly are not ingesting and digesting the substance of these words,
mhm.
right? I mean,
But it's what's funny in that same vein, isn't there a sense of irony in there in hypocritical thought when we talk about how good and how pleasant it is for
I
brothers to
think
dwell together in unity,
I
and
think
then
it's idealistic,
in the same vein we say let all private animosity if
right?
any exists.
Right. Well, I think it's idealistic. I think with it because it is, right? Like I know I go
Yeah.
in, feel great, man. When I'm in there with my brothers and when I'm we had some guys receive some Scottish Rite degrees last weekend.
Hmm.
And afterwards, we went and got some breakfast, and it was great, man. We went. I'm a soul food guy. I'm Texan, and one of my favorite meals, my last meal could be fried liver and onions, rice and gravy.
Can't rock with you, but I hear you. I just
Woo, boy!
can't rock
Oh my
with you.
God! And there's a place down the street from our consistory that they have it, and it's good. And I went, man. We sat down, we broke bread, we had it, and then afterwards we went to Wally's, which is a really nice bar in Beverly Hills, and we had some nice conversation, good drinks, but really the food was the conversation, man. Oh my God. It was so uplifting and how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to
Hmm.
dwell together in unity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was that. And I looked around, man, and there was a new guy, a guy who's recently come in to both the lodge and to the Scottish Rite. And he's been looking, he's been, because you know what it is, right? Like you come in and you have all this expectation and you don't find it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like you're looking around like, okay, when do I get it now?
Yeah.
Where are the brothers that I went through all of this process, but and he said to me, he said, okay, I now because we always say, the lodge is outside the lodge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he was like, I get it. And it was so good and substantial, and brothers were sharing their ideas. And there wasn't like, it wasn't an echo chamber. It wasn't like, an agreement love fest, circle jerk kind of thing, right? There was real conversation and even debate about it. There's a conversation. I think I shared part of it with you, but there was a debate. There was a part of a conversation that I will not share on this conversation, but it was good, man. It was real meaty. But I think it's idealistic, that piece of it. And I think that the second part recognizes the humanity because we have it, right?
Hmm.
Brothers don't always get along. People get beef. You know what I'm saying? Like
Of
there are
course.
people that you're really close with that just get on your goddamn nerves. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll drive you to pure distraction. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes they're triggering your childhood wounds. People just don't always get along.
Hmm.
But what we ask is when you have this regalia on, and when you're standing in this symbolic home of God,
Hmm.
representative of your own human body and the God that lives within it.
Hmm.
You are standing there. We want you thinking about that. We want you thinking about the reverential space that you're standing in and the reverential space that you are. We want you thinking about the fact that there is no difference between you and the guy sitting across from you, even if you have a beef with him. And we want you for the time that you're sitting here, and hopefully once you leave here, to squash that, to not put that in the front, to put it, in fact, so far to the back that we can just be here and focus on this education about how we can become better versions of, so we are going to get better bricks and better paint and better
Hmm.
wood and make straighter walls and bigger buildings to house this sacred thing that we are. And so that if we do our jobs right, when we go outside of this thing, the buzz is still there. So you keep
Hmm.
going.
Well, I got two words for you. Um, Emotional intelligence,
Through EQ, brother.
AQ. And so we can say those things, but if we're not teaching EQ or emotional intelligence to be a little bit more succinct and from an understanding perspective, and we figure out and we know it to be true that the brothers are not emotionally intelligent, right? It's not to say that they're academic. We're not talking about their academic intelligence, and brothers get that confused. Their emotional
Plenty of
intelligence, their
smart
ability
guys,
to
dumb as hell.
yeah, yeah, their ability to process information, as you know, and then be able to decipher it without reacting, because we all get reactive in certain way, shape, or form, right? Certain things, but understanding that I have to be in a space where I process it the right way because I'm dealing with human beings on the other side of whatever I'm going to say or whatever we're going to say. So just imagine if we got to a space where we were teaching emotional intelligence.
I have a
And
book. I'm gonna put this book out here. Let me find this book real
I
quick.
have, well, my next book is Emotional Intelligence 2.0 that my wife has been telling me, yeah, you need to read that. You need to read that. And I've taught classes in specifics, not the whole class, curriculum, but specific pieces of it about emotional intelligence and leadership.
So 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 this book, I know I want to make sure I give the exact correct name of it because I give this book out to patients and clients, right?
Hmm.
Because I find that it is one of the most important books on giving yourself a basis for EQ. Um, It comes out of the Arbinger Institute.
Mm.
And the book is called why is it not just popping? It is called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger
Okay.
Institute. It's not a super huge read, but I think it's a really important read because one of the things it does is it puts you in the position of watching someone else do the work and
Mm.
seeing the impact, and it gives these little teeny tiny bite-sized things that you can do without telling. It's without being an exercise like saying do this.
Hmm.
You go through it while you're reading the book, right? And what you realize is that you have so much responsibility. You have so much necessity for a personal accountability. And if you do that and recognize that you're not just standing in the world by yourself, that everything you say and do has impact and resonance on all the things outside of you, right?
Hmm.
But you also have the first responsibility to just be accountable
That's
for
it.
yourself,
The
right?
accountability piece is what we don't talk about, right? Because we get into the blame game, but we don't take accountability. And then we teach people how to delegate, but we forget to tell them that they're accountable and responsible.
Mhm. There's more too, though. Man, one of the things I want to do, what I would love for us to do is a workshop on so this next book that I'm writing is a book on it's funny because the working title is called Man Love, and I kind of want to keep it that way, although I know it's going to raise some eyebrows. But the book is about how men engage with intimacy, not sex,
Yeah, yeah, of
not
course.
just sex, intimacy, all of it, the whole of it. And it includes the ability to communicate, right?
Hmm.
And it has a small part of this book talks about the inner reaction, the reaction between, the man and his woman, right? His partner. The next book is the whole of that book is based on it's around the concept of that relationship. But a big
Hmm.
piece of it is vulnerability, being able to be open and accessible, being able to learn to being able to listen and to listen.
Active listening.
Communication, communication, not
Yeah.
having a thought in your head and just waiting for your opportunity to say it, but actually listening and responding inside of the construct of the conversation,
Hmm.
right? Commitment to the success of the relationship, whether
Hmm.
that's the relationship with you and your buddy, you and your lodge, you and your organization, but commitment to that. That I'm not talking
Hmm.
about blind, stupid faith. But my what I hope more than I really hope for the success of this. I want this to win. And then the understanding that it's flawed. It's not going to be perfect. People are going to mess up. They're going to make you mad. The
Hmm.
organization is not all. It's going to fumble. But the greatest part of that commitment is the commitment to repair, not eventually, right now, fast, fast. In
Hmm.
other words, it's going to fall down. But I'm so committed to the success of this that I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to hear you. If I did something to hurt you or upset you I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to listen with such an open vulnerability
Hmm.
that I'm going to consider that you're right. I'm going to be curious about the idea that maybe you're right. And I'm going to look at it. And if I find it, and I'm going to look to find it, I'm going to adjust it, and I'm going to look to repair. And I'm going to look to, even if I don't agree with you, to find tools and utilize them with you so that we can find a bridge, so that we can keep this thing moving forward and keep it healthy. And that this structure is for you as a man with your other male counterparts, that your business
Hmm.
associates, your social, organizational friends, your close buddies, your girlfriends, your wives. Man, if we could figure this out, if we could start getting guys to understand emotional intelligence as it sits inside of relationship, we will save lives, we will save marriages, we will save relationships, and we will fix a good portion of what's going on wrong in these organizations. But
You're
guys
you
have to be open to it, and they have to know they don't have the tools. True.
but we got to get to the point like our counterparts where we're doing workshops where we're drilling down on things, the external things, the peripheral things that make up the internal stuff that we just don't touch on, the emotional intelligence, right? We do have to talk about trust as part of that hierarchy, right? The communication, communication, and but we also have to talk about the trust. If you talk about the man love, the whole concept of the emotional dealing with your emotions and getting in touch with that emotional side, not some sensitive. The intimacy is what you really refer to, but
You can be
it
sensitive in it, but it doesn't mean that you are not manly or that you want to have sex with this other guy or any of those
uh,
things. It doesn't mean any of those things.
I got told some years ago. This is a few years back. Somebody told me, they came to my face and they had the gonads to say that somebody said that I was too emotional. And I thought about that for a second. I said, what the hell is too emotional?
Doesn't
I
make
said,
it.
I said, I'm passionate. And if I love what we do as brothers in this fraternity, and I'm very passionate about the educational piece of it to get the information out there, but to say that I'm too emotional, it's subjective. There's no objectivity to
it
emotionality.
it's a silly state. Look, you have your physical body,
Yeah,
you have your mental slash spiritual body,
right, right.
you have your emotional body. The brain functions to host its seats. It's the larger seat of your mind, your mental structure. But we now
Mm,
know that so that your gut is a part of that also, right? But
mm-hmm,
then we understand that your heart also is a seat of your emotional body. You feel in here, right?
mm-hmm,
But if you are a person who is, you don't, you're cut. We'll be real simple. You're cut off from your gut. Your intuition is you don't have it. It's not functioning. You're not functioning right. You're not working right. You're out of balance. If you're not a guy or person that uses their mind, or your
mm-hmm,
the mind is not working right, it's diseased. You're out of balance. If you're a person who's like, you know what, I can't be sensitive because people are going to say I'm too sensitive. I can't be emotional because people are going to say I'm too emotional. I can't be affected. I can't feel. Then you are out of balance. You must be in balance and open to receiving information from all of your bodies and also digesting them,
mm-hmm,
all of this information in all of these three bodies, and then being able to express them as a unified whole. Listen, you know what the Merkaba is?
briefly heard of it, not
The
intimately familiar.
Merkaba is an inner, it's a shape, but it's a shape that is made from something. And when it moves in perfect, when it's moving correctly, it creates a torus,
Okay.
toroidal energy field. And
Mm-hmm,
it is essentially all of your three bodies functioning at proper tone, proper frequency, in alignment. And when you can do that,
mm-hmm.
like people talk about ascension and, like, people reaching the Buddha state and all of these things, it's really not that complicated. It's really about being able to be not too sensitive, extraordinarily sensitive.
So yeah, like a unified strength, if
Mm-hmm.
you will.
Yep. It's short body strength, sensitivity in your body, meaning I can
Mm-hmm.
feel this stuff and I'm open to, I can do it. Like the old kung fu movies where you're going to blindfold the guy, right? But he can feel it coming, like he sees like that level of
Yeah, no.
sensitivity. Mental sensitivity, where I'm open, I can take in all this information, I can digest it, and I can use it for proper purpose. But also heart. If anybody tells me that somebody's too sensitive, man, oh, it just gets me on fire. What are you talking? Then you need to learn to be more sensitive so that you can stand and hold space for this person who is really sensitive or emotional or passionate or whatever it is. Learn to
Yeah.
do that yourself.
And surprisingly, it didn't, I know me and I can get driven by a lot of stuff, but surprisingly, it didn't even make me mad. It just got me thinking. And I even asked my wife, I'm like, "Eh, what's too emotional?" Right? And it was like one of those things, it was just kind of it catches you off guard. Like I said, I wasn't even really mad about it. I laughed about it, when they told me, I literally laughed out loud because it was so silly to me.
Should have given
Like,
him you should have given him a hug. Just hug him, hold him for a little bit.
well, I almost gave him the finger, but that's a whole different conversation.
Understood.
That now that would have been over emotional, I guess, if you will, if there's such a
Look,
thing.
man,
But
it
but
wouldn't have been the mature response for sure.
no, my emotional intelligence definitely would have been called into question at that point. But I just laughed. I thought it was funny. I talked to the wife about it. I talked to a couple close confidants about it, and I just think that it was a bigger picture. It was a bigger plan at play. That was just one of the things that were released to see if they can get a rise out of me,
Mhm.
and they didn't. And once they didn't elicit the response that they thought they were going to get, then it fizzled. So it was just kind of funny.
But listen, it rounds it out, right? So
It does,
we
yeah.
started out talking about, the idea that the organization is in some really dire trouble. You
They
know,
are. We
it's
are.
it's horizontal right now,
Hmm.
and that you're not gonna throw a party or you know dress a certain way. You're not gonna dress it. Somebody said something to me. I gotta be careful with this one, but somebody said something to me about why we dress a certain way and why there's a call to it. Whereas in other jurisdictions, there's more relaxed, versions to some of the dress. And someone said, well, there's a person who said that, well, they want excellent. I don't remember the phrase. It wasn't excellent gentleman, but it was something gentleman, like perfect gentleman or whatever, right? And I said, man, but you know what? It's funny. You can put on the best suit. You can put on a pair of $5,000 loafers. You know what I'm saying? But if there's no substance, then you're just a stuffed suit. If there's nothing inside the suit, it doesn't matter. I would much rather you be in a Sergio Tacchini sweatshirt, or a sweatsuit, but be filled with knowledge and education and the will and ability to share it. Less judgment, more brotherhood,
Mm.
all those things. That is a weak grip. It's
Yeah.
a weak grip. It will not lift this, right? It doesn't matter how you dress it up if you lack in its substance. And then the next thing is you really have to be able to, you're going to try it again, right? You're going to try and say, all right, well, we're going to take another run at this. But if you're not giving people, you could be substance filled. You could have those guys where we know some of those guys are really smart. They have the knowledge, but they will not share it. They're above everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like they're so full with the information and they're smart and they're above here and they made it here. And, I'm here, but they're not reaching down to give that information to seed the ground with that information so that new sprouts can rise up. That too is a weak grip.
Well, we don't adhere to behavior organizational management, right? We don't even talk about it. Like those topics have come up recently. Even on the other podcast, we did behavior organizational management, like we talked about, and it's focused on the leadership of a specific independent body. And once we got to talking, and all of those things came up. Like all of those things came up, and it was such a profound conversation, and it was just lasted about 45 minutes to be honest with you. Very quick, very to the point, but very impactful at the same time. And the same can be said on this side as well, that we just don't look at our fraternity from those prisms, through those prisms, emotional intelligence,
Let's
communication.
do this though. Let's do this.
Mhm.
Let's not just say what it is. Why don't you take a few minutes and describe it and give a little lesson on how people can apply what that tool is.
Yeah, I'll kind of bring up some of the stuff because I had some really pointed notes. Um, and to be fair, I want to kind of read from the notes just for contextual understanding.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I just want to, I want us to get in the habit of we're actually giving people stuff that is
mhm.
meat on the bone. You know what I mean? Because you'll say these things, man, and they don't know what it is. They don't know what it is and they don't know how to apply it, but the stuff is not overcomplicated. If we could just give it to them, oh man, I know how to do that, or we should be doing that. I can do this, right? And then they can look it up, they can learn more about it. Shit, you can teach a class on it.
Yeah, no, this is true. This is true. So let's do this to be fair. All right, to your point.
Down at the bottom, you can go on the floor. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I went full. So again, as we were just talking about, like organizational behavioral management, right? Leadership, harmony, and service. And we won't get too deep in the weeds, but there's some slides that I just kind of want to go through and give some contextual understanding on. Just the core drivers, because we've talked about it this whole episode so far: light,
Mm-hmm.
moral and spiritual development, tradition and ritual. We didn't really touch on, but we can, right? Brotherhood and voluntary commitment. These things are just leadership success modules. That's all
Mm-hmm.
they really are. All they are is just leadership success modules. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. These are the pillars. These are the core drivers, if you will. Motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when do we ever motivate brothers, right? We talked around it, but what you were talking about for the most part is the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But within that culture, there's a certain group dynamics. And then again, it comes up again, tradition and ritual. We can't get away from the tradition within the ritual. We can enhance it, teach it, and mentor it, be mentors, but we have to adhere to it. And then here's the key. Look at the last one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Generational differences.
Yep.
That's 90% of the battle.
Yeah. The core of it stays the same, but the communication may shift,
Absolutely.
right? The
Because
communication
there's
may shift.
the ideologies from the different generations is where we have to find a common ground.
Mm-hmm.
We refuse to find a common ground because they want to be right and we want to be right. Everybody can't be right.
we
The,
have we have these pillars that are unshakable, right? Like we have these things inside of our organization that are supposed to be cement or
hmm
steel for a reason, right? Because there's the understanding that generations have changed. They're not always like the ones that came before them.
Absolutely.
But these things must stay the same.
hmm
We can talk,
That
use different words, we can have different slang, we do all that stuff. But when it comes to this,
the tradition, right? The tradition and the ritual,
mhm,
certain cultural things have to remain the same
mhm,
because we swing to this piece.
mhm,
People don't understand the difference between leadership and management.
mhm.
And understanding as a leader, you're a servant. To your point
Oh,
earlier,
man.
you're a servant. That's your responsibility as a leader is to be a servant,
Mhm.
but you inherently have to be a visionary and you have to inspire, right? Leaders inspire and motivate, but you have to most importantly look at that second
Can we
bullet.
talk about vision for 1 second?
We
Because I
can.
think people miss this idea. I think they think that leaders mean when you get a leader, especially when you're in an organization where leadership changes and changes often, right?
hmm
If you have a bunch of people who different, they all of them have vision, but they're different visions, right? You're just
hmm
gonna be, it's gonna look like chaos.
It
It's
is,
gonna
but
look like
let me ask you
schizophrenia.
let me ask you a question about vision. Uh,
Hmm.
can you have sight without vision?
You cannot,
And so why do companies and successful organizations have this old what's that little thing called? A vision statement.
right? But just this too, this is the point I'm driving at. I
hmm
think a good leader, look, if you're just a visionary sitting under a tree, you go right to it, man. Re-envision the world, but do it, you're gonna do it by yourself.
hmm
Leaders that are in the position of guiding vision. And this is what I think the core difference is. It's not so much that they need to have their own vision. It is that they should be able to go and grasp the vision of the zeitgeist of that moment of those group of people. Where do they want to go? What do they want to
hmm
see? Right. And then take that and stew it down into some functional, executable plan where
hmm
and under over which they are the steward, right? It is the vision of the group where they want to go, and they have made it into something that can be done. And then it is the management's, it is the management of the craft or the organization who's then tasked with under this person's guidance, shared guidance,
hmm
coached guidance, coached by them, right? To execute this plan. but it shouldn't be that this, this guy, man, he sees a new way to do this, man, and he's gonna do it. We're just gonna follow him. Nonsense.
No,
Nonsense.
it's absolutely nonsense. But the managers really, just to your point, they plan and execute, but
Hmm.
they also help adhere to the structural structure and compliance.
Hmm.
So they're the executors, right? The leader has this visionary,
Yeah, yeah.
but they have to work together. You need both.
You got to have them both for sure.
But people don't understand that concept, right? Here, the next one is it gets a little bit stickier, right? Here's where it gets crazy.
Hmm.
Authority, rank,
As
respect,
service, rank as service, not
service,
control.
control,
Rank is service,
service,
not
not
control.
control, right? And then correct privately, praise publicly.
Correct privately. See something
Because
going
when
on?
we yeah, but when we inverse, we do it we do it now inversely, right?
Correct.
And so when we
Correct.
do it the opposite way, obviously, we put people in a vicarious position and it makes them defensive,
Hmm.
right? Correct privately, praise publicly to keep that okay, this cultural understanding that we're unison
Hmm.
behind closed doors, we'll make course correction and then we'll come back. That's to the first bullet, rank as service,
Hmm.
not control, right?
Officers are stewards, not bosses.
Not bosses, right? So again, respect flows upward
Yeah.
and downward,
But
right?
here's what's interesting. If this is a system that is in place and this is what's being used, respect, man, you said something earlier. You said you have to have trust, right?
There you do.
Which it is true, but trust is created. Trust is
It's
trust is built in through structure and repetition and consistency. It's trust comes when you create safe spaces and you hold those safe spaces as sacred. In other words, no, we're not going to trample on this. You're going to be
mm-hmm,
able to be here and be yourself in here, and you don't
mm-hmm,
have fear here, right? And we're going to respect you and hold you up as a person and as an individual, as a human being,
mm-hmm,
right? And then when you have that other system that you just had up functionally happening,
mm.
then you have trust and respect that goes both ways. And then you have strength, which is what is it? Strength is the harm. It's what is it? How does it go? Of all institutions, especially this of
See, there's
ours.
some bars,
Come
right?
on, come on.
Right. Those words are powerful, but let's think about motivation and engagement because we forget those things as well. Then the purpose, right? To serve a higher ideal is bigger than us. Our servitude is bigger than us. Rank as service, not control. We got to kind of go back to that. And here's what people fail to realize, brothers and every brothers and people in general, that most people just want recognition. They just want to be celebrated for the things that they're doing.
People want to be seen and heard.
And we don't do it.
They want to be held as valuable.
The fraternity doesn't do it enough.
Look, you can only find harmony by being harmonious. And
Yeah.
you're going to get that with this respect. You're going to get
Harmony, the strength of all institutions, more especially this of
about
ours.
it. So, but again, it's idealistic. It's supposed to be that way,
Supposed to be,
right?
right?
But
But
you have to put
brotherhood.
these other systems in place and make them actually be functional, working, doing it. And then we can get those things. We can have
Mhm. We say the words brotherhood and don't understand the belonging and camaraderie that goes with that word, that conjunctive word. And then it doesn't lead to growth because
no, because
we never lead, learn, or nor do we improve.
if you're doing all those, if you're not doing these things that you've outlined here, what you're doing is you're shrinking people. You're
Hmm.
putting them into a space where they don't want it, they don't feel like they have a voice or they don't want to use it because they're living under a certain kind of fear of some kind of retaliation or retribution. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they won't. You're not going to have growth. If you don't grow the individuals, you can't grow the organization.
It's impossible. But you said something earlier. We talk about all this. People wanted to come in and they didn't want to be a part of Freemasonry. He says, "Well, what's the moniker? We take good men and make them better men." But look at that quote: Freemasonry does not make good men better men. It motivates good men to be their best,
100%.
right?
Give them
Or
tools and motivation to improve themselves.
that's it.
Mhm.
And here's what is going to happen. We need communication, listen calmly, speak thoroughly, right? Seek common ground, but we need conflict too. People shy away from conflict. We just have to manage it properly, right? Before it escalates harshly, and we shouldn't act impulsively, which we're human. We tend to do that, but when we do those things, we divide it into sides. So when we divide our organization, which kind of right now, this is what we're under a division, it gets crazy. But we need conflict because conflict breeds resolution, which breeds
Conflict is
success.
normal. Conflict,
It
you will
is.
not have life without conflict. But what we talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? The commitment to the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm committed to the success of the relationship. So what I know is not going to breed success in this relationship is if when we have a conflict, not if, but when we have a conflict,
When
if I'm going to destroy you, or if I'm going to set off a bomb, or if I'm going to say things that are going to wound you to the point that we can't repair, that is not a commitment to the success of our relationship, right?
mm-hmm.
And also the commitment to repair. So if I'm committed to repair, if I'm committed to the relationship and I'm committed to repair, when
Mm-hmm.
we get into a conflict, these things are front of mind. So I understand that as I traverse this ground, I am going to personally be careful, not walk on eggshells. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to say, listen, I love this person. I love this man. I love this person. I love this organization. And so I'm going to treat this thing like I would treat myself. I'm going to maintain respect. I'm going to be honorable in this process, right? Because I want to not have to go so deep into the work of repair. I don't want to dent the car. I don't want to destroy the car and have to remake it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want the whole time for you to understand and we're in conflict that I love you and respect you, that I hold you as an ultimately high individual, as a being in my space, in our shared collective space. And so I'm going to hear you. I'm going to force myself
Well,
to listen even when it's uncomfortable.
you know what? You said it earlier. There's a couple things. Active listening, we don't do. And then what happens, conflict derives from, and some of the best practices that I have is just some side notes, is use rank to serve, not to dominate, because we use the rank to dominate, which creates conflict.
Yeah. I had a guy say to me, oh man, I had a guy say to me one day, we were working on something we were in a meeting. He came into the meeting late. He was a little flustered. He said something and somebody kind of cut him off and he got a little agitated with that guy. And after the meeting, I went to him and I needed to get some information from him. And his rank is a little bit higher than mine in the organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he called me what, by my, in his mind, degraded rank.
Oh
And
yeah.
he stated his own, what he felt like was higher rank.
Mm-hmm.
Said, because I'm this and you're this, you have to listen to me and you need to respect me. And I was like, listen, man, I want us to never make these mistakes. I want us to never do that because you're like the level of the how we're potentially destroying this relationship with that nonsensical statement, right? And how we will get to truth on this, the variety of pathways to it. So that because I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
need you to understand that what you just said is absolute and utter bullshit. This game that we're playing, and I said that on purpose, is designed to give us some opportunity to be better, and it is not a social club. And I know we sometimes treat it that way more than we treat it as the thing that it actually is. But in the aspect that it is social or even structured, whatever higher level that you have reached is also a higher level of responsibility. To, for
Yeah.
instance, never ever say the nonsensical bullshit that you just said to me because it shows you as unworthy of the thing that has been conferred upon you, it is destructive and distracting to the actual
Mm.
point. The fact that we have to have this conversation and I have to educate you on where you are right now and what you're doing and never, ever, ever, ever do it again.
But
You are
rank
of service.
as
Right.
service,
That's
not
it.
control, not
That's it.
control.
That is it. And the shock that went across this man's face, like it, brother, brother, and I mean that, and I said it,
Hmm.
I am your friend, but I am friend enough to tell you the truth in as harsh a way as necessary here in this moment. If you have achieved this thing, then your role here is as servant, not as parent, not as boss,
Hmm.
servant.
That's it, bro. That's it. And nothing more, nothing less. Rank as service and not control. That's why when you brought that up, I'm glad you brought that up. And I wanted to share this with our viewers, the actual PowerPoint. And I just went over this with some district deputies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of anchored on this one a little bit because I feel the leadership position, your ethics and accountability is huge, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
integrity, right? Doing the right thing all the time, even when nobody's looking as a leader, that's an important trait to have. And if you lack ethics, if you lack integrity, then what are you doing?
It's absolutely right. Then you should
What
step
are you
away.
doing?
That you should step away.
You shouldn't be in a leadership position,
No.
right? You should just step away. You're right. But you have to be transparent, be open and honest, even when it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Be open and honest because bad news doesn't get better with time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have a moral responsibility. You do. It's not even complicated. You have a moral responsibility. Your
Right.
moral compass has to be true north, i.e., your integrity has to always be true north.
Not
So
just as
I
a Mason,
no, period.
period.
Leadership, period.
Not just in leadership,
No, period. I mean,
period.
irrespective of whatever level leadership or management, subordinate,
Whatever
doesn't
in
matter.
whatever your relationship is to whatever the thing is, that
Doesn't
whatever other
matter.
human being or thing,
Doesn't
these
matter.
things remain true, full stop, period.
Hmm.
If you can look at yourself and ask yourself the questions, am I in integrity? Am I
I,
being transparent? Am I being responsible or accountable for myself
mhm.
as I'm asking other people to be this for me? Am I doing it? Right? If you're not, you're failing.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you, right? Here's where we fail. I'm just gonna straight up say it. But as in our fraternity, here's where we fail. We don't develop leaders.
Yeah.
We straight up we don't guide them, we don't mentor them, and we damn sure don't encourage them. Let's just keep it a buck, right? Somebody gonna be in their feelings. Oh, Raul's on some BS. No, I'm being honest because I've seen it for 20 years, right? We don't develop leaders. And we don't, if we say we're doing it, we don't do it properly. And so let me just be,
I've seen guys develop followers until those guys are not following them anymore, and then they want to break them down.
we're developing cliques, we're not developing leaders, right? And if we look at the situation as a whole, we talk about that integrity. We lack integrity because if our, remember, as leaders, servants, we have to be of service, not control. So to be a servant, we understand that we have a cultural responsibility and we still have a tradition and a ritual that we have to adhere to, but we have a cultural responsibility. Again, understanding that moral compass being true north. We should guide and pass on knowledge. We don't. You said it earlier, guys that are so smart they just retain the knowledge for themselves. We need to guide as leaders, developing leaders, we need to guide and pass on knowledge. We don't freaking mentor anybody. We look at talent, potential talent, and we don't mentor them, giving them the tools because you can't teach experience. So we don't help them gain that experience. We diminish them because we disrespect them publicly and then we do it privately too. So there's never any praise.
You have to want, again, you have to be committed to the relationship in this particular
Mm,
case of the organization. Part of that is being willing to step out of power. You don't need to hold on to power.
mm,
Encourage these younger bodies, these younger lights that come in, give them tools, educate them, put them in roles where they can excel, and then let them. And when you see them doing it, we've talked about this before. I remember when I first came into order, a guy jumped on me for being overzealous, and I was like, "What are you talking about, man? What does that even
Uh,
mean?" Like I have too much energy and desire to be good in this and to be helpful. That's silly. It's just a silly thing. Don't do that.
well,
Don't dim the light of these brothers as they come in, and turn it up, man. And if you see them excelling, if you see that there's something that they have to offer, that
encourage it.
something that you don't, encourage it,
Encourage
especially
it.
if you don't have it. Don't be jealous about it. Don't be sensitive about it. That we're going to talk about sensitive in the negative sense, right? That's when it's not good,
Hmm.
right? Don't allow your ego to get in the way of the percolation, the upward rise of good, new, talented leadership.
Well,
And it
look
too
at
often does happen.
look at the symbol over where it says guide. Look at the symbol.
Yeah.
It's a light.
Yeah.
It's a light. We don't give them any light.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we turn it out. We make them walk in the dark.
Man, don't, hey, turn that zeal down, buddy.
We make it walk. We that light is shining, and we make them walk in the dark. We don't encourage them, and we damn sure don't mentor them, right?
Mhm.
Here's what we also don't do is there's so many ways to quantify either qualitative or quantitative understanding, and even just a fundamental understanding of measuring the lodge's health.
Mhm.
Health. There's different ways to do it through attendance, harmony,
Yeah.
being the strength of this institution, more especially the Savars, right? Of all institutions, more especially the Savars, and growth,
Mhm.
steady membership. That's kind of a metrics we can see. But charity extends beyond the grave to the boundless realms of eternity.
Without
We
question.
say those words, we say them, but we don't use them within our organizations. How do we measure the lodge's health? Charity is one of the ways that one of the things we just don't think about. We don't give the charity.
Service is a volunteer service organization, and we miss this, right? We're not, you,
Hmm.
I want to move your bucket. I want to rearrange your buckets, though. I want to put harmony before attendance,
Yeah, you can put them in any order. That's the
right?
cool thing about it, right?
Right.
You
But
can
I
put them in
said,
any
if you
order.
don't have harmony in your lodge, you're not going to have attendance.
Of course not. I agree with you 100%.
You
This
must
we
have
kind of
harmony, and you have to give them a reason to come. And if you do that, then they will come. And in that they feel this harmony, this safe space, this this emotional intelligence that's surrounding them and that embracing them. The
mhm,
intellect. Don't we not I'm not ignoring the intellect, right? The IQ either. You have to bring that. Give them thing, give them meat,
of
right?
course.
Then you're going to get growth. And then use the energy, the abundance of energy that you have now generated
Hmm.
to help.
But here's your point. Look at the quote. A healthy lodge is a welcoming, purposeful,
Yep.
growing, and giving lodge,
Right
right?
the same, right in the correct order. Absolutely.
Right. And if you do that, now just a summation of it is really just a quote, right? Lead with compassion, guide with wisdom,
Mhm.
and live in the service of others. Again, that servitude, right? Elevating each brother to his highest self. It's not about you know, I say this, that leaders have to be selfless, not selfish.
Mhm.
Right.
That's
So
it.
that was the driving, right? When I made this, I made this with us in mind and the current state as we'll wind this down right now. But I made this PowerPoint with all the things we talked about in mind because
Mhm.
it was bugging me. It was really bugging me. And this is a way that I just release to put it on paper
Yeah.
to make it manifest itself so people can see it and maybe it'll spark some interest if it's out there in a training. It's kind of in a training model by doing it like
So we're
this.
going to round it out. So we talked about, again, this organization right now is in dire state, and we're trying to figure out how to bring it up. We talked about what is a weak grip. We talked about a great grip that may be a slightly stronger grip, having people who are smart and capable, but if they're not sharing the information, if they're not engendering these new people with zeal and
Mhm.
with guidance and with all this extra new light so that they can go out. and really be a part of this organization functionally and benefit the organization. That's
Right.
still a weak grip. The things that we just talked about, the thing you just presented, and the things that we've been talking about, EQ and bringing all of these things, the knowledge that you can be functional. That's another piece, right? Write resolutions, brothers. Write it. Think about something you want. And I'm asking, I don't know if we passed the date. I don't think we are. Write a resolution this year and get it on the
It's
floor.
coming close. It's
It's getting close.
April 15th,
It's
I
April
believe.
15th. Write
Hmm.
a resolution and put it on the floor. And if it doesn't make it to the floor, then be loud about asking the question why. Because if it doesn't make it, somebody did something that they shouldn't be doing unconstitutionally. And you need to be loud about that. Don't let it happen. We're not going to suffer despots. Do not do that. Don't suffer tyranny. But all of these things, when combined and made active, are the stronger grip.
Hmm.
When you use that grip, then you will absolutely be able to lift this thing out of the grave. There's no
That
question about
that lion's paw, right? If you
it.
think about just the tribes of Israel, that lion's paw and that strong grip, right? That symbol of strength that we just don't go to. We just forget about it. We fall into a weak. We go into rigor mortis, if you will. We just fall into a weak, putrid state.
Yeah, it's gonna
The
fall apart.
flesh is cleaving from the bone.
Yeah,
And then just the last point I would leave us with, because you summarize everything else, is what we saw on the slides is rank is service, not control.
yeah. Rank, leadership, all of those things. The whole point is it's all service. It's service
Hmm.
from the top down. It is not the will and pleasure of the leader. It is the
Hmm.
will and pleasure of the craft. And I know we say it a different way, but it is not true. It is not right.
Yeah.
It is incorrect. And I wish that's a resolution for you. I wish we would say it differently. I really do, because if we would do that and if it would come from the top down, maybe the better way, if it comes from the top up, is that what it is, right? The top is really at the bottom of the funnel.
You
But
could
like
literally just take out the direction, in my opinion, right?
100
Just just like the harmony and the lodge attendants, you
service,
can take. Yep.
service out, service
Yep.
resonating outward. And
Absolutely.
if that comes from the leadership, man, imagine if everybody in the organization was resonating service.
It's a cultural understanding, right? But it is a culture nonetheless that has to be manifest. Now, this does has to be manifest or should be manifest from the top down.
Who, how can I help you? What can I do for you? How can I be of service? How can I make this better for you, individual?
Yeah.
What can I do to help move this forward? What is it that you want to see? What's the future of this organization? How can I help move this ball closer to the goal line? How can I teach the people who are coming behind me to continue to move this football or this ball down closer to the goal line so that we eventually reach it and then find new goals to get to? How do I do that? Not how do you serve me? Not how do you say what I need you to hear? Not how do I make sure that you don't say anything that's offensive to me or that's not in agreement with whatever it is that I'm thinking. Those
Hmm.
things are incompatible with success.
Yeah, but let me add this too. How can I serve you? How can I help? Let me give you some language changes. Let me interject some new language. Instead of I and me, how about we and us?
Yep. How can we do this? How can we get this done?
Yep. Instead of I and me, how about we and us?
Mm.
And then as we, just the last thought, because we're on this leadership vein, there's Dr. Eric Thomas gives this parable, and I'll make it very short. It talks about he met a leadership guru on the road, and the guy comes up, I've been looking for you as this leadership guru. He says, okay, I want to be successful. He says, okay, we'll go over there and see my leadership coach, my 1A, if you will, down by the river, down by the water. He goes by the water, and the guy says, okay, go in the water. The leadership guru coach says, goes in the water. The guy goes in the water. He dunks his head under the water and just holds him there. To the guy almost passes out. And then he pulls him up. And he says, what were you thinking about when you were under there? He says, to breathe. He says, that's how you be successful. If you if you want to breathe as bad as you want to succeed, then you'll be successful.
Yeah, listen, man. Listen, focus. Focus on your
Yeah.
goal and do the
Yeah.
thing, man. Like really, really do it.
Yeah.
Treat it like you love this life.
Yeah.
Listen, don't fear death. Follow your
Nah, man.
follow your guide and have no fear. Love this life. And last point, the
Mm,
burial is important here. We do this Masonic burial, and people look at it with a certain amount of reverence.
mm,
And I hope that everybody understands that whenever you're doing a burial, and certainly our burial, the message is not to the dead. Dead is dead. They're gone. They've moved on.
mm.
Message is to the living. And the message isn't telling you how to die, it's telling you how to live. It's telling you don't be afraid of death.
The solemn notes that be token.
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. I may have said it once or twice publicly.
Maybe a couple times, you know.
But nah, this is dope, man. Let me hit the, kill the live